Are you struggling to decide which idea to pick for your comic? Or do you often wonder if the idea you already have for your story is good enough? If you want to know if your idea is any good, stay tuned. I'm Poseidon, and welcome to Pantheon Talks. Any idea can be good. Let's look at a few examples of stories where the premise or basic idea may seem strange but have achieved success. A group of turtles fight crime and protect their city from evil. A woman kidnaps a town to process her grief. A boy finds a notebook which allows him to kill people by writing down their name. A young girl helps a haunted toilet destroy evil spirits. Yes, all of these are real. These ideas may seem wild and unhinged, but it proves that almost any story, no matter how bizarre, can be successful. Now, if you want a guarantee that you will make money from your comic, that's a marketing problem, not a writing problem. So, on the writing side, the question isn't, is my idea good, but is the idea worth my time? Let's look at a few key areas to help us determine if we should move forward with the concept we've come up with. Consider the commitment. Is it compelling? Consider the framing. Consider the wow factor. Consider the profitability. Number 1, be committed. Now, when I'm talking about being committed, I'm referring to committing to the core or central idea of the story we're working on. Just consider the amount of time and effort that goes into making a comic, sometimes years. Therefore, it's important for us to be committed to the idea we choose regardless of how outlandish or possibly outright weird it is. Which can be easier said than done, especially when you have so many ideas that you think are good. First, sort through all your ideas and choose the ones you like best and have the most potential. You can make a list of the ideas and take time to go over these carefully. After a reasonable amount of time, make a decision. Which is likely the hardest part because we know that once we get started with the idea, we will spend possibly the next several months or years in some cases turning this into a comic. To see if I'm truly committed to the idea, I consider a few areas before diving in. The idea haunts. Ask yourself, does the idea haunt me? When you are washing dishes, taking a shower, at work or school, regardless of what you're doing or where you are, does your brain continue to focus on that one idea for your story? Do you find yourself being inspired by random and mundane things that make you want to work on that specific idea or concept? Does this idea appear more often in your thoughts than the story ideas you've written down? If that's the case, you likely have an idea that you are relatively passionate about and want to form into a comic. An idea that haunts you means you likely value the concept enough to spend a considerable amount of time on it and not regret what you've done, even if it's unsuccessful. Next is the friend test. Ask yourself, do your close friends think it's a good idea? It's hard to be vulnerable with people, especially about things that are extremely personal to us like our story and character. However, we need feedback to grow. Tell the concept to a friend who will give you the hard and honest but respectful feedback. On a side note, it's important to remember every individual is swayed by their own personal bias and concepts of things they like and find personally interesting. So if you have a number of friends you can pull from to get feedback, that would be the most useful route to take. When talking to your friend, make sure in your description to convey the main idea and really sell the concept like your life depended on it. It is especially useful if you can convince a friend who doesn't like the genre your story is in. For example, an action lover who doesn't like romance series is willing to try the romance series you're creating. If your friends think it's a good idea or they are willing to help you refine your idea, not only has your story gained tremendous value, but you've created a support system you can rely on during the difficult process of making the comic. Next, cold-hearted market value. Ask yourself, from a cold-hearted perspective, is there any market value? If profit is unimportant and the comic you are creating is a story you must tell, then please ignore this section. For profitability's sake, you must be ruthless with your own story. Simply ask yourself, who is the target audience? What is the size of that audience on Webtoon? Not from manga, comics, or anime consumers, but Webtoons. What value does the story bring to my audience? Does the comic have any designs that are marketable? This is all a part of the process. Next, take a break. Ask yourself, what were the results from not working on the story? This idea can be connected to the haunting aspect. Take a week off from the idea and do not work on it no matter what. While you're on the break, if the idea continues to haunt you, then this idea is something you want to pursue. The point in this is to look at the story objectively once you've detached yourself from the story. Coming back with fresh eyes may help you determine where to go, either by keeping or refining the current idea or moving on to another. For us, if this idea fails any of the above-mentioned aspects, then we go back to the writing board and either rework the idea or choose another. As a group trying to make comic making or stories our career, we can't waste our time on ideas we aren't all that into. Number 2, is it compelling? The first question to ask and answer is your story compelling to you? This is different than just being committed to an idea. Once you get into actually writing or outlining, you may realize comics are much more than just cool or pretty looking characters, OP powers and abilities, or epic moments. A story, to a reasonable degree, must remain compelling throughout the beginning, middle, and end. So we must make sure our story is interesting throughout the entire comic. It doesn't matter if you're planning an epic, world-shattering superhero comic or a cute slice-of-life comic about the struggles of raising a pet. If the story can't hold our interest throughout the planning phase or even the beginning of the first few episodes, rework the idea. The second question to ask and answer is the story compelling to the readers? Do all characters, plots, and themes have a meaning to the audience? If the audience can't connect mentally or emotionally to the story, then they won't be interested. Ask yourself how I can make this important to my audience. Compel them to keep reading, because often you can get a reader to continue if you pull at their heart and evoke an emotion or feeling over appealing to their brain and logical structure. Number 3, consider the framing. Is there a similar comic or story to yours? This isn't debatable. The answer is yes. But having a similar story isn't the problem. The way we frame the story is. If you find that there is a story similar to yours, then ask yourself, how is my story different? Can I tell this similar story in a better way? Can I aim the story at a different audience? Frame the story in a way that may be new to the audience and engage them in a way they weren't expecting and really wow their expectations. This leads us to our fourth point, wow factor. It's hard to put the wow factor into words. Expressing exciting, emotional, and other types of complexity in stories and comics will make a lasting impact and keep our readers coming back for more. In my opinion, stories that wow the audience helps to build the connection we have with our audience. Capturing the wow factor may sound intimidating, but don't stress about it. Here are a few questions to help you get started. Ask yourself, does my story make the reader feel something? Have I given the story a heart? Are there any universal truths incorporated into my story? Next, our last point, number 5, profitability. This section is only for those who either want to make money or turn this hobby into a career. It should be noted, I'm not talking about becoming rich, but creating an income to sustain your basic needs with a little fun money on the side. Having a cool idea is the foundation for potentially making money. Getting support from the comic alone is great, but it's likely not going to be enough to cover all your bills. As creators, we need multiple revenue streams instead of having all of our eggs in one basket. However, don't dive in head first. Be strategic and careful. Ask yourself, who is the audience you are trying to reach? This will determine and affect the merchandise, content, and services you make. For example, if your series is action-based, your audience probably would prefer dynamic art prints instead of stagnant beauty shots of the characters. Also, keep in mind anything can become marketable. Symbols and logos are not only easy to recreate, but have meaning to the story you're creating. Things like the elemental symbols in Genshin Impact, the Sailor Guardian's crest from Sailor Moon, or the guild tattoo from Fairy Tail. All awesome examples of ways to make something simple, profitable. Remember to create either something useful or that will appeal to your audience and the consumers of that genre. If you've made it to this point, thank you so much for listening. Next week, we'll discuss our monthly recommendations for Webtoon. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, leave us a like, a comment, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next upload. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts linked in the description. We are particularly active on Instagram, so if you want to chat with us, head on over. We'll catch you in the next video.